Hey guys, so I was really excited for this movie after seeing Talk to Me, which is a movie that really caught me off guard at just how good it was. I really did not expect it to be that good. I thought it would be a run of the mill horror movie, and it's really stuck with me over the years as a movie that did the rare thing for me, which very few horror movies manage to do and actually unsettle me in a way that does stay with me. So, bring her back, I thought it would sort of be like Stephen King's Pet Cemetery minus the cemetery, but it really wasn't like that for me. I was lucky I got to go to the Sydney premiere and see the directors give an interview before the movie, and it was really interesting hearing their thoughts on it and how grateful they were to have Sally Hawkins on board, and she was just phenomenal, but I'll talk about that a bit more later. Anyway, look, it's a really good time right now for Australian cinema because this is a movie, obviously, the brothers are Australian. They filmed it over here, and also I'm going to Sydney Film Festival next week to see Dangerous Animals, which is another Australian movie, a shark movie I feel like nobody's talking about. So it's a good time right now for Australian cinema. So this movie is about a mother who loses her daughter in a drowning accident and tries to bring her back to life, hence the title. I don't feel like that is any kind of spoiler because unless you've been living under a rock at this stage, you know what the movie titled Bring Her Back about a mother is about. Like, it's really not that hard to put the pieces together. Anyway, look, I feel like this had the potential to be such a clever exploration of grief and generational trauma, but it did fall short for me in a few areas. Look, I'm just going to be honest, I've seen a lot of people saying that this is the best horror of the year so far, and maybe they're being honest, maybe it really is for them, but for me it was Final Destination Bloodlines, hands down, gotta admit it. I saw that twice in the cinema. Anyway, taste is subjective, I guess, but for me, look, I wouldn't go as far as to say it was awful, but it's definitely not one I'm going to be rewatching, and it's a pity because coming off the back of the success of Talk to Me from A24, who's brought out like Civil War, they've been really, hitting it out of the park lately, and Talk to Me had a sense of realism about it that I also really appreciated in this movie. Like, it just felt so grounded in reality. It felt like these are people you could actually know. It just felt immersive in a way that a lot of movies aren't. So when it comes to the brothers, the directors, I feel like they are very talented, and I'm still going to look out in the future to see what they might do next. But yeah, I felt like they're better than this. So the acting was really good. There was Sora Wong, who was at the Sydney premiere, and she did a really good job. She brought such a level of terror, of just putting yourself in this poor girl's shoes and not knowing how you would navigate these circumstances with a hearing impairment. Billy Barrett, an Australian up-and-coming actor, did a really good job. He had a lot of really tense emotional scenes, and I thought he absolutely nailed it. But of course, hands down, Sally Hawkins was the best. She has such a range. She can go from the kind-caring mother she played in Paddington, and I love those movies, and just seeing her go from that to this, where she's just so unhinged and sort of like a Kathy Bates from Misery type of a person is what she reminds me of. It's really just an example of what a talented actress she is. So the directors definitely have a talent for exploring those themes of grief in horrific ways, but I feel like they just did it so much better in Talk to Me. And I feel like based off what I've heard everybody say about this movie, I went into it expecting a really, really bleak, nihilistic, mean-spirited movie. And don't get me wrong, it is very sad, but I didn't really get it as, very, very mean-spirited. It just felt, like you need a really comforting, funny show to watch after the movie because you need something to cheer you up. I did feel like it was a bit of a slow burn to a fairly anticlimactic third act climax. I felt like the ending pulled its punches. I don't want to give away spoilers, but I do feel like it would have benefited if it did lean into being a meaner movie. The ending that I feel like would have been really good, would have been, a payoff to the slow burn that we got, would have been one that really didn't pull its punches, and I can't give any more away, but let's just say it feels like they were trying to wrap things up a little too neatly. So I feel like the use of sound was really clever, and the filming for this, the cinematography, just the score in general, those aspects of the movie were top notch. And like I said, the directors are very talented. The way that they used symbolism from the colors and the pool and particular shots they do, it was all very clever. It's like they had all the pieces of a really good movie. They just didn't quite put it together in the way they did for Talk to Me. And I went with my mum, and I really thought she would walk out within like 10 minutes because she hates horror movies. She doesn't like things that are scary or gory, and she was able to sit through the whole movie. She didn't find it scary at all. She actually laughed at some of the moments that were meant to be scary, and yeah, it just wasn't scary at all, and I can see why she laughed. There were a few moments, especially with Oliver, towards the end, and Oliver was such a intriguing character who had so much potential, and there were some moments with Oliver at the beginning of the movie that were funny intentionally, and those jokes really do land well. And I just feel like there was a lot about that character that we could have explored that didn't get explored. Like, his origin story is touched upon, but it would have been more interesting to go into it a little more deeply. Look, I have no problem with gore if it's done in a way that adds to the movie. And I feel like in Talk to Me, I know I keep comparing them, but I mean, you can't really help it. So with that movie, I felt like it was, it was something that the story, it added to the story. It fit into the story. Here, it just felt like it was done for shock value. There's something they do with teeth, and I cannot stand things with teeth. Let's just say that. It just felt like it was there for shock value, as well as full frontal male nudity several times. It just felt unnecessary. Swearing, like, obviously it's a horror movie. Yeah, I get it. They're gonna swear like they often do in horror movies, but it felt like so excessive, like every second word. And it just felt like they thought that adding all this nudity and gore and that was gonna somehow elevate the movie instead of focusing on the script and the story, which is where it fell short. And if they had tightened up those areas, it could have been on the level of Talk to Me. Anyway, we have a Talk to Me 2 coming out, so we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully they can redeem themselves. But yeah, I'm going to say I feel like I'm the only one I've seen that didn't enjoy this movie. I don't know if there's anyone else out there, let me know down below, but I would personally give it a 6 out of 10. Was it one I would say is awful? No, I wouldn't call this a bad movie. I just wouldn't say it's good either. It was just very mediocre for me. It's not one I'm going to rewatch or remember down the road. So I would say watch this if you're a fan of Talk to Me, but wait for it to come out on streaming. So please consider subscribing or liking, commenting, all of that YouTube stuff. It really helps me to grow my channel. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.